When most of us grow up Muslim, we are taught something very clear. The Qur'an is not only spiritually true, it is historically true. What it describes really happened, exactly as described. This confidence is not something modern Muslims invented. Classical scholars held it without hesitation. They did not treat Quranic narratives as allegory or symbolism. They understood them as real history, events that unfolded in the real world. Only much later, after archaeology, modern historiography, and the comparative study of religion, did a different kind of questioning begin. So in this video, I want to examine several historical claims made by the Qur'an calmly, precisely, and historically. We will begin with the traditional Muslim understanding, grounded in the Qur'an, classical tafsīr, and early Islamic historians. Then we will look at what historians outside the Islamic tradition have observed. Then we will consider how modern Muslim thought responds. And finally, we will pause and reflect. The Qur'an repeatedly speaks about ancient Arabian peoples destroyed by God as warnings for later generations. Among them are Ad, Iram of the Pillars, and Thamūd. They are described as powerful, physically strong, and architecturally advanced. In Al-Fajr, the dawn, Iram is described as a civilization, the like of which was not created in the lands. In Al-A'raf, the heights, and Ash-Shu'ara, the poets, Ad are portrayed as builders of monuments and masters of strength. Thamūd and Hud are described as carving homes into rock and rejecting their prophet Salih. Classical Muslim scholars had no doubts about this. Al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, Al-Qurtubi all treated these peoples as real historical civilizations. Not symbols, not parables, but real nations, real prophets, real destruction. The stories function as precedent. Look what happened to them. Do not repeat it. Now the difficulty begins. Outside Islamic sources, there is no archaeological or textual evidence for Ad or for Iram as historical civilizations. None. Thamūd does appear in non-Islamic evidence, mainly inscriptions, but historians such as Robert Hoyland treat Thamūd as a North Arabian tribal designation, not as an unmatched civilization with a clear destruction horizon. Historically, these narratives resemble regional moral memory, not recoverable ancient history. Modern Muslim apologetics often responds by saying archaeology is incomplete, deserts erase evidence, and absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. But these responses do not add positive proof. They delay falsification. Classical Islam asserted literal history. Modern evidence does not confirm it. Now let us widen the lens. The Qur'an explicitly claims universality. In Al-Anbiya, the prophets, Muhammad is described as a mercy to all worlds. In Fatir, the originator, the Qur'an says every nation received a warner. Classical scholars understood this literally. God's guidance was global. Yet when we examine the Qur'an's narrative world, a pattern becomes obvious. Every story is Near Eastern, Arabia, Egypt, the Levant. In Al-Anbiya, the prophets, almost all prophets named are figures already known from the Bible or Torah, such as Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Job, Jonah, Zechariah, John, Mary, and finally Jesus. The absence is not random. There are no prophets tied to China, no moral histories tied to India, nothing from sub-Saharan Africa, nothing from the Americas, although most of these folks were pagans by Islamic standards and may have needed divine guidance. This reflects a worldview shaped by the late antique Near East. And this raises a difficult question. If Allah is Al-Alim, the all-knowing, and the Qur'an is meant for all mankind, would an all-knowing God leave no trace, not even a recognizable footprint, of vast continents and peoples already living at the time? Modern Muslim thought often responds that the Qur'an is not a history book. But this response did not exist classically. It appears only after the problem is raised. Now consider a sharper technical example. The Qur'an places a man named Hāmān alongside Pharaoh during the time of Moses, especially in Al-Qasas, the stories. Classical Islam accepted this without question. Historically, Hāmān is a known figure from the Book of Esther, which belongs to the Hebrew Bible, not the New Testament. In Esther, Hāmān is a Persian court official under King Xerxes, living roughly 1,000 years after Moses. No Egyptian text mentions him. No inscription, no papyrus, no administrative record. Modern Muslim explanations sometimes suggest Hāmān was a title, or that Egyptian records are incomplete. But Egyptology is a well-established field built on thousands of texts, and it does not support these explanations. The simplest historical conclusion is narrative conflation, biblical material transmitted without chronological separation. In fact, the story about Hāmān seems to have been inspired by the ancient story about the Tower of Babylon, but we will not go into this here. A similar pattern appears in stories about Jesus. The Qur'an describes Jesus speaking from the cradle, creating birds from clay, and Mary giving birth alone under a palm tree in Maryam, Mary and Al-Imran, the family of Imran. Classical Islam accepted all of this as revelation. Historically, these stories do not appear in the canonical New Testament. They appear in Christian apocryphal literature, popular folk texts, circulating on the edges of late antique Christianity. Think of them like ancient manga, imaginative, influential, widely shared, but not treated as authoritative history. Modern Muslim explanations say God restored forgotten truths, or that similarity does not imply borrowing. Historically, the direction of dependence is clear. The Qur'an reflects popular Arab Christianity, not apostolic tradition. The Qur'an's portrayal of Christianity more broadly follows a very similar pattern. It criticizes Christians for declaring Jesus divine, affirming a Trinity, and elevating Mary, particularly in Al-Ma'idah, the table. This polemic even appears in early Islamic architecture. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, built in the late 7th century, contains inscriptions explicitly attacking Trinitarian belief, echoing Quranic language. Classical Islam believed this accurately described Christianity. Historically, it does not describe Byzantine Christianity. Instead, it aligns most closely with fringe or non-imperial sects, such as the Ebionites, the Gnostics, and the Monophysites. Ebionites emphasized strict monotheism and often viewed Jesus as a human prophet. Gnostics treated salvation as secret knowledge and often denied Jesus truly suffered physically. Monophysites, prominent in Syria and Egypt, emphasized a single nature of Christ and existed outside imperial theological uniformity. The geography matters. These groups were concentrated around Arabia's borders. Modern apologetics often claims the Qur'an was addressing specific sectarian Christian beliefs. But the text never makes this distinction clear. Islam appears to have interacted primarily with sectarian Christianity on Arabia's margins, not with the dominant theology of its time. Muslims believe that the Qur'an was meant to be the final book in the series of revelations, including the Torah and the Bible. If the Qur'an is the final installment correcting earlier books, it is like an author writing a sequel that engages with unofficial drafts instead of the original book. The question then is which text the author actually knew. The final example concerns one of the most famous miracles in Islamic tradition. The Qur'an states in Al-Qamar, the moon, that the moon was split as a sign. Classical Islam understood this literally, a physical lunar division, supported by Sahih Hadith in Al-Bukhari and Muslim. The Hadith presented as a public event. The moon splits into two visible parts. Witnesses are told to bear witness, and the event is treated as something seen in real time. Yet no civilization on Earth recorded such an event. Not the Chinese, not the Indians, not the Persians, not the Byzantines. Many of these cultures had advanced astronomy and relied on lunar observation for calendars, agriculture, and state administration. A visible lunar split would have been observed globally. Modern Muslim thought retreats from the classical position. The event becomes a vision, an illusion, or a non-physical miracle. Some invoke NASA claims, which NASA itself denies. Once again, reinterpretation replaces certainty. When we step back, a clear pattern emerges. The Qur'an makes concrete historical claims. Classical Islam affirmed them confidently. Modern historical evidence challenges them. Modern Muslim thought reinterprets what classical scholars never doubted. This does not show a revelation speaking from outside history. It shows a text embedded within late antiquity, shaped by its environment, its legends, and its sectarian knowledge. And one final pattern is hard to ignore. When a Quranic statement appears close to modern science, apologists insist the Quran meant exactly that all along. We will touch on this in the videos to come. When a Quranic claim conflicts with modern knowledge, the text suddenly becomes metaphorical. Literal and allegorical begin to look less like principles and more like rescue strategies. So the question we want to leave you with is simple. If the meaning keeps changing to fit what we learn, how do we know what was actually revealed? If you liked this video, leave your thoughts in the comments. If you want a specific topic explored next, let me know. Subscribe to the channel. Ergo Dubito. Think critically.